Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 5:06 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Before we get to our next guest, to take a call or two here, I've got Chris calling in from Arlington, line 4. Hello, Chris. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hello, Vince. Love your show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chris.
Good. Hey, the Trump boat parade, I took part in that in 2020, and let me tell you, it not only was it great, a lot of fun, but we counted at least 100 boats. I know we didn't get them all, but we got to 100 boats in that parade, and only one had a Biden flag.
Had a Biden flag?
Yeah. They obviously they weren't part of the parade, but
yeah.
They actually. Right as we were crossing under one of the bridges, it was kind of funny. They tried to interrupt the flow, and we boxed them out. But it was a great time, and I didn't know that there was. I figured there would be one coming up. I didn't realize there was one. What is it? 2 Sundays from now?
Yeah, 2 Sundays. Corey was telling me it's the 23rd, right, Corey? Yeah. Oh, the 29th? Is that what he said? 29th. Okay, it's the 29th is the boat parade, and they're meeting right by just north of the Woodrow Wilson Bridge.
Well, I hope to see a lot more than that this time, and unfortunately, I won't be out there. We had to sell the boat when the second kid came, but we'll be out there cheering them on. And Corey, I didn't call fishing for an invitation, but if you find room on your boat, I'm buying the beers and the food, and I'll even pay for gas.
All right. Well, I recommend you call Corey back. You two can work that out. I think that might happen. Thanks, Chris, very much. I appreciate that. So, Chris, with a news report on that old 2020 boat parade, we'll see what happens this time for 2024. All the Trump flags showing up on the Potomac. I love it. I just love it because of how many Democrats live along or work along the Potomac and they shake their fists in anger. It's the best. All right. But in order to get them to shake their fists in even more anger, Trump's got to win the election. Republicans got to win all over the place. And that in Virginia starts tomorrow. Early voting begins tomorrow in the Commonwealth of Virginia. For more on that, I want to bring in Rich Anderson now, the chairman of the Republican Party of Virginia. Rich, good to have you back with us, sir.
Hey, good to be back, Vince.
It is a big deal. The election is now going to be underway tomorrow. How are you going to be spending the day, sir?
Well, I'll be watching what's going on. I'm also going to be in the car headed down to Virginia Beach for a pretty large rally for 2nd District Congresswoman Jen Kiggins, and then working my way back across the Commonwealth at a number of events through the weekend. But tomorrow is the first day of early voting, both in person and by mail-in. And it starts what we call voting month. In fact, voting month and a half. It's a 45-day period that culminates on Tuesday, November the 5th, which is traditional election day.
Yeah, and the Republican Party, everybody I've been talking to, including you, I think, on this subject, everybody's saying go ahead and get that vote locked in as early as you can, right?
Get it locked in early. It's all the way from President Trump down to our precinct captains. That's what we're telling people. Lock it in early. I think we can trust our mail-in ballot system. That's the way I do it. I'm on the permanent absentee ballot roster, and it works perfectly. Every day you get a text message to your phone telling where it is, all the way from when it leaves the voter, the registrar's office coming to you, to when you put it back in the mail and it makes its way back. They tell you when they've received it, and they tell you when they've counted it. So you can trust that. But if you're one of these people that just can't stomach the mail for voting, go in and vote early, because starting tomorrow, those voting offices will be open.
Yeah, and the Virginia Elections website provides all the addresses and times of all the various places that you can go to, depending on what county you're in. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., Corey and I will be at the Fairfax County Government Center right at 8 a.m. Because I'm going to vote right there, and our goal is to meet up with anybody else who wants to join us, kind of turn this thing into a party.
All right. On the first day of early voting, I walked in there with Glenn Youngkin as he cast his vote in 2021.
Cool. I love that. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, my guess is he'll probably do the same thing tomorrow.
Probably so. Probably so.
Okay. All right. Good. And Jen Kiggins, you talk about Virginia Beach and District 2. I was talking earlier this week. The Associated Press had a big report on this, and Jen Kiggins has been speaking very publicly about it. There's a left-wing organization that has been trying to put basically phony third-party candidates on the ballot across the country, including in Jen Kiggins' district. Do you know if it's any more? Do you know if it's any more widespread than just Virginia too?
Well, I first learned about this. They've been so surreptitious about this. I had not even heard of this until Congresswoman Kiggins sent me a text 2 days ago about it.
Yeah.
And she said she was going to start speaking about it. So evidently they are engaged in some sort of subterranean guerrilla warfare trying to bring out these fake candidates, which tells me one thing. They are worried about this election.
Well, for sure, and they don't think they can win it in a democratic way, so they have to try and rig the outcome. How are you feeling about the presidential election right now, Rich, in Virginia?
I am feeling very good. Governor Youngkin, who really has access to some high resolution data, as you would expect, he is feeling very good about it, and I share in his confidence about the ultimate outcome. I believe Virginia still is in play. I know the left and those in the media who want to buoy them up are saying that Virginia is lost, but I feel a pathway here. Just remember, this is a state that in 2020, Joe Biden carried about slightly over 10 points, and just 1 year later, Governor Glenn Youngkin won it by 2 points.
Yeah.
And so we're moving in the right direction. So stand by. We're working it hard. I'll just give you a quick thumbnail sketch about our force structure. I couldn't be more pleased. 2020, the Trump campaign did not play in Virginia in a heavy way, but this year they are here. They're firing on all cylinders. We've got 18 regional Trump offices and strategic locations, dozens of staffers, boatloads of money. We've got 5,000 poll watchers trained up and ready to go, 500 fired up attorneys. We are working with designating officers of elections who will oversee this in polling locations. And so far, for our election integrity effort, we've recruited over 8,000 volunteers, and they will be in all 133 localities with the Commonwealth, and they'll be there for all 45 days of this election cycle. We're doing comprehensive training for them 4 days a week by Zoom and 5 days a week in person. And our election integrity staff, we got 9 folks there, a director and a deputy, and then worker bees. They augment the existing Republican Party of Virginia election integrity program. And as you know, the Attorney General, Jason Miyares, stood up a pretty effective election integrity unit within the Office of the Attorney General. But the thing that gives me the greatest confidence is Governor Youngkin has issued executive orders. I think I got these numbers right, 31 and 35, but they are all about protecting the ballot. It's considered to be now one of the best in the nation. It's daily list maintenance. They've removed 6,000 plus non-citizen voters. They cross-checked this with DMV data, jury lists. They have done machine testing to make sure that these machines are working properly and are accurately recording votes. And in Virginia, we don't use voting machines. We use counting machines. That is lost on people. We use counting machines, and it works. And the reason we know it works is just down in the 5th District, we had that recount with Bob Good and John McGuire, and it validated the recount, validated everything. So right. I am feeling very good about all this. Governor Youngkin has taken immense leadership of this program in Virginia.
And that is an important distinction. Voting machines are the machines where people push the screen in order to indicate who they want to vote for. That's not what Virginia does. Virginia's got a paper ballot. You fill out a paper ballot, you slide it into the machine, it records your vote. And you're saying that you've got confidence that it's
does it all.
Accurately picking it up.
Correct. And you have the paper as the backup and for a cross-check in a recount.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. Do you expect President Trump to pay us a visit in the Commonwealth in the weeks ahead?
Well, I have been told that that's under consideration. Remember, he's got a whole country that he's got to set his foot down in, all those states, as many states as possible. I don't have a definite or firm date right now, but I believe he will come back here at least one more time. But the guy is everywhere. He's one ball of fire. He's energetic. Let's just say that. So
I know.
I'm prayerful that we will see him here, and at least, if not him, a member of the Trump family or our vice presidential nominee.
But in other words, they still do take seriously the chances of winning in Virginia. I remember it was early, I think, this month. some reports that the Trump campaign was beginning to pull some resources from Virginia, throw them towards Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. But it sounds to me like what you're saying is that they very much see this state still in play.
Correct. I've got eyes on, hands on everything that the Trump folks are doing here, and they have not throttled back one bit. I think this is part of that psychological warfare you see coming out of the left.
Yeah, for sure. And then finally, just to reiterate the point that we started with, tomorrow is the first day of early voting in the state. What are you telling people to do? And, should we overwhelm the polls tomorrow if we so desire?
I would love to see that, because the earlier you bank your vote, the quicker we start getting to that place where we will prevail on November the 5th. It's very easy to determine your voting location. Most voters, if they can locate it, they still have a voter ID card that tells their voting location. Additionally, you can go online, just Google Virginia Department of Elections, and it's a very user-friendly drill down to find out exactly the address where you go vote and the times that they're open.
All right. Well, the big game starts tomorrow in Virginia. And thank you, as always, for your time today. Rich Anderson, chairman of the Republican Party in the state. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Vance. Have a good one.
Yes, sir. You too. Always good to talk to you. There's Rich Anderson. So a lot to do, and with just a month and a half to do it. Now that the election day is stretched out this long. Let's see. On line 4, I've got Dennis calling in from Startana right now. Dennis, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Yeah, Vince, this is urgent. I heard you. I was in the car about early voting, and we've got to get this hung cow in.
Yeah.
Because this Kane's got to go. He's a clone of this guy Wolf. I mean, they're like the same person, and so we need somebody to get out there and talk him up. And I guess your screener said you're having him on tomorrow. But I don't know, that's what I'm saying.
I've got his book right here in my hands. Love Hung Cow. Call Me an American. I'm holding his book right here. And Hung's going to be on with us tomorrow. In fact, Corey and I were talking very early this week. I was like, I got to get Hung on for the first day of early voting. So that's, of course, what we're doing. But he's great, and you're right. He's got to defeat Tim Kaine, and he's a great Senate candidate who will definitely improve the country should he represent Virginia in the Senate. So we're looking forward to that, Dennis.
All right. Thanks a lot, Vince.
Yes, sir. Thanks for calling in on that. Okay. I'm going to send things off to Ed Rodriguez here and then come back with you. I've got more phone calls to take as well as a lot more information to share. All right, let's go to the phones. I've got Tommy calling in from Clear Spring now, line 2. Hello, Tommy. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I hear you great.
Oh, okay. Hey, cool. Man, it's good to talk to you. I love your show. I listen to it. I commute about 100 miles every day, and I listen to it every day.
Wow.
I hope you're doing good.
Thanks, Tommy. Are you driving a truck?
I'm sorry. No, I'm not driving a car.
100 miles a day.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's one way.
Amazing. Go ahead, Tommy.
Pay the grocery bills, right?
Yeah. I respect it.
Hey, listen, we've got an election coming up, okay? And everybody, I know there's not everybody, but a lot of people are probably wanting to do more than just vote, okay?
Yeah.
Here's the deal that I got, Vince. It's not going to do us a damn bit of good if Donald Trump takes a bullet.
No.
And it doesn't seem like the Secret Service is giving him the level of security that he needs.
Right.
Okay? Now, you would probably know a lot, or you would know a lot better than I would. Is it perfectly legal and all that if he was to hire, his own security company?
It's a good question. I would imagine that Mar-a-Lago, for instance, probably has security guards. I've never been to Mar-a-Lago, but one would assume they've got some private security there. And it's not unusual for the Secret Service to work with other agencies. Now, I think it comes down to, if I was to ask Dan Bongino about this, it would probably be the various layers. The guys who are closest to the president would have to be the Secret Service. But as you begin getting further and further outside, I imagine that private security could be of assistance. I mean, one obvious place, Tommy, is if the Secret Service isn't going to provide canines to sniff for dogs or look for humans hidden in hedgerows, maybe private security could fill the gap.
They certainly could, Vince. There's a group, I'm not trying to plug anybody, but there's one group I know of. It's called AirScan in Florida. They're huge, and this is what they do. They've got drones that, not just these little drones like you see at football games and stuff. I mean big drones. And they have FLIR and thermal imaging and even technologies beyond that.
Yeah.
If those technologies were present in Pennsylvania or down in Florida at the golf course, these bad guys, so to speak, they would have been found out like within minutes.
I know.
You know?
I know. This is like, it's so funny you mentioned this. I was just talking to my dad about this yesterday too. We have this conversation all the time about this, and he talks about the drones and the dogs, and I'm sitting there going, these are not the most expensive solutions. I mean, these are the kinds of things that you would think are relatively affordable and be very useful to help maintain a security perimeter, and yet here we are in this multiple assassination attempts against Donald Trump, and here's you, me, my dad. We're all just sitting around talking like, how can we protect this guy? Tommy, I'm convinced a Boy Scout troop sometimes could do a better job.
You're right. Hey, here's the idea I got.
Tell me.
Okay. Hey, approximately how many people voted for Trump last time around?
What did they tell us? It was like 75 million or something?
Okay, 75 million. If you took a third of that, that's 25 million people. If 25 million people paid $24 for 2024 every month to a fund to employ a private security company to protect our president throughout his administration, that's a lot of money.
It would be a lot of money. You did the math. You're right about that. Thank you, Tommy. I appreciate it. Thanks for always being on the road with us each day too, sir. All right, hold on. I've got more ahead, including what I think a CNN contributor said to a Republican congresswoman on the air. He was vicious. Off the air, it was a booty call. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 5:36 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, I'm going to share with you some audio. A Republican congresswoman says that a left-wing CNN commentator who attacked her viciously on the air, as soon as they get off the air, he started sending some very suggestive text messages to her. Amazing. Not that surprising, but kind of fun. So I'll share that with you. But before we get there, the number 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Hoke is calling in from Round Hill. He's on line 4. Hello, Hoke. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. I find myself full of useless information that at the weirdest times in life becomes useful. But at some point after he left the presidency, I know that Richard Nixon declined Secret Service protection as a cost savings to the government, is what I've heard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you're mentioning this. It's funny. Your call came in just as Chris Plant's text also came in to me with the same, as you put it, useless but now useful piece of information, which is pretty funny. So great minds, Hoke. And I looked it up and here's what I have. 1974, Nixon leaves the White House. It's 1985, 11 years later, when he makes the decision. He sends a letter to the government and says he's done. He's not going to take Secret Service protection anymore. He can afford to protect himself, and that there would be no time in which he was unguarded. He would have private security protecting him from then on. And so he did make that decision. And as the New York Times pointed out back then in 1985 when he did it, the only two officials who are mandated to have Secret Service protection are the active president and vice president of the United States, or at least as the law was written at the time. So theoretically, you could say thanks, but no thanks. I don't need it anymore. I'd prefer not to. I'll come up with my own security. So this really gets at the point that we're talking about here, Hoke, which is, are there other solutions? Are there other people who could possibly either supplement Trump's protection or just take over entirely? And it appears the answer could be yes, but it's a sad state of affairs if you can't trust the Secret Service to protect the guys who they're tasked with protecting.
Yeah, the thing that would bother me about doing that if I were Trump is the propensity of some of these places where he goes to just say, "Oh, we're not going to allow your guys to be armed." And then
I guess theoretically,
government.
and that would be an awful thing to do, especially if Trump trusts those people. Also, maybe just get them deputized or something. Make them all sheriff's deputies and have them help protect Trump. But local law enforcement has to do this all the time with the Secret Service. They're there, they're armed, they've got their dogs, they assist. It's just crazy that we're even at this point where the Secret Service can't do the job, and they can't do the simple things, I guess. Get the dogs out there, get the drones up in the air, and stop that perimeter from being breached so near Donald Trump and imperiling him each time.
Yeah, I know a number of former Tier 1 operators that'd be more than happy to protect President Trump.
I've noticed a bunch of them saying it, and God, I wish they could be out there doing that. Thank you, Hoke. That's a smart point. Yeah, so Richard Nixon eventually swore it off. Although, if I was Richard Nixon, I would have gotten rid of the Secret Service a lot earlier than that. Because the whole government was out to get Nixon. They were all conspiring to destroy him. Now you got to trust the Secret Service? No, thanks. I'm done with all the feds. I'd like no more federal officials. No more. I'm done with all of that. Private now. Let's do that. Oh, amazing. Let me see here. I've got Congresswoman Nancy Mace today in Congress was during a congressional hearing. She submitted to the record some text messages that she received from a CNN commentator by the name of Michael Eric Dyson. Now, you may know him as a racist, but you may also see him occasionally on CNN, should you ever watch it. And he was on a panel with her at one point, or at least they were sharing a television desk together. And he was accusing her of all sorts of race stuff. Here's what that sounded like back when they were together during this CNN interview.
That's the history and legacy of white disregard for the humanity of black people.
Oh, so now you're calling me racist.
I didn't say. I just said you weren't a racist.
That is complete.
No, you don't have to intend racism to accomplish
you are intending that
your
I'm
disrespect
racist,
of Kamala Harris
that is
part and parcel of a tradition of disrespect.
It's offensive,
Congresswoman?
And it's,
why can't you just?
I'm
not calling you a racist. I'm saying what the practice is racist.
You are. You absolutely are.
The practice
Let me get
disrespecting. No, what's disgusting is your disrespect.
This sounds like a productive segment.
Professor.
This gentleman said,
I
didn't know her name. He's trying to do it.
Is her disrespect of women. She doesn't know what a woman is. And if 25 years ago,
white women don't have the ability to tell black women who paid the price of blood to make this country what it is, to tell them they're not real women.
25 years ago.
They care for your babies.
What? She didn't even say that. She didn't say Kamala Harris is not a real woman. She said she doesn't know what women are. What is this? Arguing things that never even were said.
So I became the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, the military.
All right, so that's how that segment went. Well, at the conclusion of that segment, Michael Eric Dyson realized that he was enamored with the woman that he just accused of being racist. And here's what happened next, according to Nancy Mace in her own words today on the floor of the House.
I would like to also enter into the record a screenshot of a text message I received from the esteemed professor from Vanderbilt, Michael Eric Dyson, after my CNN interview, begged me for photos. In this text, he says, after calling me racist on CNN, shh, don't tell anybody, we look good together, and sent me a kissy emoji.
Without objection.
Then the guy says I'm gorgeous in all these photos. I don't think he's that bent out of shape on how anyone pronounces Kamala. And if we're going to have that standard, you got to hold it to both sides, not just one or the other.
So he's sending her all sorts of messages after that, like, hey, we look pretty good together. Hey, you got any more photos you can share with me? So Nancy Mace just goes on television today to share all of this, which is really funny. And just 15 minutes ago, she posted some of the screen grabs to the internet, to X. And it's a picture of Michael Eric Dyson and Nancy Mace posing together, presumably at CNN studio. They're taking a photo together. He is gripping her a little too tightly in this picture. And he writes, shh, don't tell anybody. We look good together. And then it was a laughing and crying emoji and a kiss with a little heart coming out of the mouth of the emoji, a little kissy emoji. And she writes back, as you might expect, just to try and, let the tension down a little bit. She writes, ha, 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 ha. And then he responds, well, your gorgeousness makes the photos. So there's that, he writes. And then he sends a happy face emoji. Slow down, son. Easy, boy. Down, boy. This is not going to work out. You just called her a racist on television. What is this, like a pickup artist strategy? You just like, now I treat her like crap, and then after that I send her a photo and tell her she looks gorgeous, and let's see what happens. Michael Eric Dyson. So that's what happened today. That's what happened today. That's pretty funny. All right. Let me see here. I've got a couple of Marks calling in. I'm going to take them in order. I've got Mark in Landover Hills on line 2. Mark, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Top of the day to you, Vince. Good
Likewise.
show as always, buddy.
Thank you.
Hey, look, the call screener asked me what I wanted to say, and I wanted to comment. The gentleman that called in from Clear Spring really had some good ideas, Vince, and I've got a couple of my own.
Sure.
And this would be a couple of them. Number one, I think that somebody could talk to Donald and tell him that, hey, every time that he shows a little bit of humility and common decency, the people who are against him, Vince, know nothing about common decency and civility. So it scares them, and it brings his opinion of his up. And Vince, it works every time because of who they are. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, Vince, there are plenty of people who would protect Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And they should be able to do that because of the Good Samaritan laws and the laws that we have in the Constitution. And we should be able to help people like that.
Yeah.
We were put on this God's green earth to do that, Vince. You know this. And
yeah.
The other thing I told the caller was, Vince, was that if Donald would atone for some of his mistakes and apologize publicly, and maybe do it in front of his wife so people would believe him, the ones that will change. You're not going to change a bunch of hysterical nuts any way, shape, or form without something really bad happening, buddy.
I admire the virtue in that suggestion. Here's the issue, though, Mark, and you and I both know, I think, that what ends up happening is, first of all, we are all fallen. Everyone's got flaws. Trump among us. But for Trump to come out and then, apologize just to earn any sort of shred of respect from the people who are constantly going to lie about him, it's just not going to work. In fact, what happens is they use that as further evidence of his guilt and why he needs to be destroyed. So I would recommend against playing their game. I think President Trump has learned that through the years. There's no reason to play their game. Just soldier on, even when you make mistakes, just soldier on. Because
right,
if you do, they just use it as a weapon against you.
But remember, Vince, if this is something else, too, that you would probably remember this, but remember when he ran in 2016, they offered him all kinds of Secret Service stuff, and he turned it down and used his own private security before he was president, buddy. So things have come full circle like they usually do for human beings, hasn't it, buddy?
Well, they often do, don't they? Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. A lot of very interesting, good suggestions, and always appreciate your call. Thank you. That's Mark in Landover Hills. I got another Mark calling in from Bethesda now on line 3. Mark, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Good afternoon. I appreciate you taking my call.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about what you were saying about Secret Service and how they've really dropped the ball on their mission. And look, I've been working with the government for over 30 years in IT, information technology. And, my experience has been the military, the DOD, is less political than the civilian agencies. And so if you think about the president, what is he? He's the commander in chief, right? He's the nation's top military, or she is a top military officer. And why wouldn't you want to have the top tier Special Forces command, in this case, JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, protecting the president? Special Forces overseas protects a lot of foreign dignitaries. That's part of their mission. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, I know a lot of Special Forces operators, and there's no way that they would allow these individuals in the last 2 assassination attempts to penetrate the perimeter that was actually happening now. And they're always training. And the other thing that I think is important, Vince, is, I think nothing against the Secret Service. I'm sure there's a lot of really good people that work there.
Yeah,
but
Trump says that all the time.
Yeah, and I think they're a law enforcement agency, and I think that they're focused a lot of times on collecting evidence, looking for people that are committing the crime. And I think the Special Forces ethos is looking for and hunting for terrorists, for assassins, and it's a different mentality. And I think you want people that are hunting the hunters. And so I think that, and also the Secret Service is too buried in Department of Homeland Security. It's not enough focus.
Well, all of this makes logical sense to me. I mean, you want tier 1 operators, ready to protect our most important assets, which are people like the President of the United States and the candidates running for that same office. That makes a lot of sense to me. I will say that instinctively, what comes to mind though is that especially because most of the president's movement is domestic, you're dealing with a force of people around him who are tasked with some domestic law enforcement responsibilities. And there's, by virtue of the law, the Posse Comitatus Act, you can't have military guys doing that. But that said, there's all sorts of ways that smart military guys, active duty, can contribute to a mission like that without being involved specifically in the law enforcement component. And beyond that, maybe you just get formers, guys who've done it already, bring them in and keep this guy alive. Because that mission is super important. Keeping him alive, keeping any of these guys alive, but Trump, this cycle specifically, one of the most important things you could possibly do. If you want stability in this country, you've got to keep him alive. If you want chaos, let him get killed. That's where chaos comes from, and we 100%. Can't let that happen.
Yeah, and I think that if you want to have those guys in the tier 1 forces, they want to have the top opportunity to protect the president. I mean, to me, that's no higher office than that. And, I think that's a great idea. And you're right. Many of them could retire out of those areas and they could go into whatever the Secret Service would become and protect them that way and still be having that training. But anyway, good point.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. I appreciate your call. All right.
Let me turn my radio down. Why has nobody mentioned how Kamala is a descendant of slave owners? Hamilton Brown. He owned plantations in Jamaica, and he fought against the abolition of slavery. And then when she was DA in California, she kept people in prison beyond their term to get free labor out of them. And then she was sending people to jail while smoking pot and laughing about it.
Yes, she was, and her father Donald Harris is a descendant of the same guy you're talking about. Yeah, we have talked about that on this show. So of course you're not talking about us, Becky.
Trump needs to bring that up, and the Republicans need to bring that up.
Actually, the reason I'm glad to take your call is because I'm going to talk a little bit more about this tomorrow too. I've been doing some digging on Donald Harris. I want to talk about her dad and what's going on there. Thank you, Becky. I appreciate that. Hey, I want to remind everybody that we're going to be out tomorrow for early voting at the Fairfax County Government Center, 8 o'clock in the morning. That's when you can start voting there. If you're a Fairfax County resident, that's where I'll be. I'll be voting there. Me and Corey and I, we'll be out there. We'll bring that coffee and donuts, big smiles, and we'll hang out. We'll do some voting. We'll get it going. Look forward to seeing you there. Up next here on the legendary WMAL, Mark Levin.